Bert! Get him! Yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I know I said I wasn't going to say that anymore, but the only reason is that there is a slight chance. I don't even believe it could happen. But that could be the last time you ever hear me say that. Not because I'm going to modify my intro and not because I'm, quitting the podcast, but for those of you who follow a little closer and some of my patrons, I'm taking off for Vegas, and I'm fighting in the World Masters Jiu-Jitsu tournament this coming Saturday. So if some guy my age is way tougher than me and flips me over his head and I end up breaking my neck and dying on the mat, well, you just know that I love you all. But, I love you patrons more, and I want to apologize. I didn't have a Zoom room last week. I'm going to wait till I get back from Vegas, good, bad, or indifferent, and we're going to have a Zoom room, and I'm going to actually show the video of the fight because it's going to be filmed. Yeah, and most of my listeners aren't members of Flow Grappling, which means you're not going to be able to watch the fight. So my patrons, when I get home, I'm going to probably have the first Thursday after I get home, we'll have a Zoom room, and I should explain that. That's my producer. All right, for those who don't know what patrons are, oh hell, everybody knows what you go to Patreon and you go to Hunting Dog Podcast and you join it, you get all kinds of different shit on top of the show stuff. So, you know what? That's not going to happen. I mean, what's the worst case? I get my ass handed to me. Big deal. And I'll be talking to you all again next week with another brand new episode. Oh, but just in case this is my last airing, I want to thank OnX Hunt from the bottom of my heart for being the title sponsor. I want to thank Gunner Kennels for being my oldest sponsor. I want to thank W Supply for supplying everybody with quality Garmin products, because I know that's all you buy. Let's be honest. You don't see much of the other stuff out there. You get all your Garmin products from W Supply, and you've got it dialed in. You get your dog supplements from Canine Athlete and your human supplements from Wilderness Athlete, right? So we got that going for us. I want to thank Mossberg for being the best shotgun sponsor that I've ever had. So interactive, so supporting for Pheasant Fest with koozies and mugs and lanyards and stickers. And nobody's treated me better than that. Boss Shot Shells for being the absolute best ammunition sponsor that any podcaster could have. Purina Pro Plan for feeding my dogs for the last 30-some years. I'm sticking with 30-some from now on. I did a little math the other day. I found one of my old dog registrations. I'm like, that's been 35 years at least. Walton's for getting my kitchen into a wild game. It's not even a wild game. We just did green beans in the chamber sealer. It's not all wild. It's not all about wild game, but it's all about food preparation. And Walton's has got you covered. Marshwear for decking me out for going to Vegas. Yeah, well, that's all I wear pretty much, especially summer. It is what I would call the ideal summertime weather and early hunting season gear. Go to Marshwear, use the code HDP15, and you'll get 15% off your purchase. That's just as you as a listener. That's not even a Patreon discount. Walton's, of course, has HDP10 for a purchase of anything that's not on sale at Walton's. And Wilderness Athlete, your first order for you or your dog, 25% off with the promo code K9 Athlete. And I'm not going to spell that. It's just the letter K, the number 9, and the word athlete. You'll figure it out. I want to thank Four Wheel Campers for putting me in, I guess what I would say is I got more trips coming up this year, and I'm saving more on motels. My dogs love it. Everybody loves it. I literally have to talk about it going to gas stations. I can see people staring at it on the back of my truck. Like, what is that? I said, it's a Model M by Four Wheel Camper. and you're going to see more and more of them around, especially in bird season. I want to thank Arxis Boots. Arxis Jack, my wife got the new, was it the Gopher? The Gopher? Not Gopher, Gopher. The short, oh my God. We'll get you an Instagram reel of it. She loved it. So if you don't need rubber boots because you're still rocking your gum leafs from when Jack had only gum leafs, go to ArxisUSA.com. It's ARXUSA.com. Look at their boots. Look at their women's boots. Get your wife or significant other or your husband or your wife, or I'm trying to cover all bases here. Get anybody a pair of Arxis boots for this season. They are going to love you as much as I love you, as much as I love this podcast. Boy, that wasn't that bad. Where are we at? Like 5 minutes? Boy, if I could time it. Oh, a couple other announcements. Don't forget we have the hosted hunt in White Lake, South Dakota at the White Lake Hunting Lodge. I think there's a couple openings. Last I talked with Casey that was about 2 weeks ago. So if anybody, a lot of patrons come to it, a lot of my friends from the old neighborhood come to it, a lot of my friends from construction come to it. It is, and let me tell you something, there's going to be some beer there at this place this year that I happen to know. I happen to know a certain guy at Watermark Brewery, in Stevensville, Michigan. Oh yeah, that's worth coming to White Lake just for the Mexican lager. Yeah, so big shout out to Justin. I'll leave it at that. Big wink, like Carol Burnett used to pull on her ear, right? So we have that. We have new episodes of the Kennel Panel on the Hunting Dog Podcast YouTube channel. Okay, that's where we bring in non-professionals but very experienced dog owners, trainers, breeders, more than anything else, experienced hunters, and we go over a myriad of subjects. Is that the right way to say that? Myriad or Miriam? No, that's a turkey, a Miriam. Anyway, check out the Kennel Panel, okay? Oh, and if you want to hear, I've done this a couple times. If you want to hear me get interviewed, I just did an episode with the Woe Post. Yeah, so they got a hold of me, Bill got a hold of me and said, hey, Ron, I've been covering all the different dog breeds out there. All of them. From all the weird ones. And obviously, when he got to Broncos, my name came up because that's a weird dog and I'm a weird person and I own Broncos. So he asked if I'd come on his show and we did a little rundown of my history with Broncos and hunting and all that. So give that a listen. Did I get it all? Yeah, I think. Apologies to patrons. I've been a little neglectful, but like I said, when I get back from Vegas, I'll have the films or the video, and we on the next Zoom room can watch the fight, whether I get my ass handed to me, my arm broke, my neck broke. Now, if I do die on the mat, I already gave instructions to my wife not to show that video. Like Jesse could run the Zoom room and maybe Trent could come over here and say hi to everybody, and maybe Roof would come in from Chicago for my funeral and he could host the Zoom. But if I die, you're not going to get to see that. But win, lose, or draw, we're going to have that on the very next Zoom room. I love you guys. I love you girls. I love that hunting season is coming up even more. It's so close. Less than a month. In fact, in a month, I'll already have a week under my belt. Oh, and I got about 20 pounds less under my belt. That's feeling good. My knee's feeling good. Hunting season, look at that. I turned it into 8.5 minutes. All right, gotta go. Here's the episode. Bye. Oh, and speaking of the camper, okay, the four-wheel Model M, okay, the fine folks at Zero Breeze just shipped me a air conditioner, a portable air conditioner for the back of my truck that goes in my Model M camper. I set it up the other day. I made myself a little custom window vent for it. And my dogs this year, when I stop, when I park, when I take one dog out, especially early season, I can leave that air conditioner running in there. It's got a 4-inch tube that goes right above their kennels. Keeps them. I had it down to 65 degrees the other day in that truck. What dog wouldn't want to come back and say, You know what? I will take a break from the field if you can give me air conditioning. So Zero Breeze Mark II is going to change my, not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to change my game as far as not worrying about hot weather hunts with my dog and hot weather travel. It's going to change my dog's game. It's going to make everything better. And not to mention, when I sleep in a thing, I worry more about my dogs than me. I can always just, leave the window open and get some mosquito bites. I'm not going to die. But traveling down the road with your dog in a cap, you want to check out the Zero Breeze Mark II. They are, so far, I've only had it for a week and a half, and I am impressed. I also got two other things FedEx this week. I got my Load of Love, which is my Purina. I got the next, it comes in, half pallets when I get it. And FedEx showed up. I've got my Load of Love. My dogs are going to be set for hunting season with Purina Pro Plan. And I got another pair of Arxis boots. Now here's the key. This is Arxis USA. Remember, if you're a longtime listener and you already have a pair of gum leaf boots, you're like, Ron, what are you talking about, Arxis? And I missed the last couple episodes, or I missed the last quarter. Arxis USA is the brand that Jack Butler is bringing in along with his remaining gum leaf boots to make sure that we have in this country what you can only get in other countries, real rubber boots. And they have got more styles, and this pair was for my wife. You want to talk about walking into hunting season when you give your wife this pair of boots, and she's like, oh my God, it's a game changer. I mean, she's had crap boots, and she's always needs them for running out and taking care of the chickens or checking the garden or doing whatever, especially in the wet mornings. Well, she's now got a pair of Arxis boots. You need to get one for your spouse, your loved one, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband. I don't care who you want to get them for. You're going to be impressed with ArxisUSA.com. Yes, you will be. And I think I got it. I love you girls. I love you guys. And I love you patrons more. That's okay to say, isn't it? Because they do. They show me a little love, and I show them a little love back.
Turn this thing on.
Yeah, we don't want to waste a gem. I just have to introduce. We're with Ben Jones and Jon Steigerwalt. Is it Steigerwalt, John? I did get it right because we all know that's a fine German name, and the last name Wald means forest. What does the Steiger stand for?
I've been told by a German forester that that my name loosely translates to climbing forest.
Climbing forests. Okay.
Or forest climber, forest walker, something along those lines.
So when Ben was looking for help, he's like, well, his last name indicates that he knows something about the forest, right?
Sounds like the right guy.
Sounds like the right guy. Anyway, we're going to talk about what's been happening at RGS, expansions, and all kinds of fun stuff with forestry. And I want to make the analogy when Ben called me up to say, hey, let's get together and have a chat. I got a friend who is he works for Mossberg, and they're cutting back on people in charge of an area and adding areas to his route. Like he has 3 more states to cover, where this good news is the opposite. You're cutting this man's district in half, Ben, right? He is no longer going to have to jump across the pond and take care of our national forest. Is that a good analogy?
Yeah, well, the details matter there because it's not the cut in half of the geography and the challenge of working on both sides of the lake is there for sure. But John has gotten so much done over the past few years that the workload kind of demands that it gets split in half. So yeah, John's getting his region geographically split in half, but he won't have any less work to do because he's just generated so many habitat projects and there's so much going on that he's at capacity. So if we're going to keep building on the eastern side of the Great Lakes, then we need somebody to take that on and help John out. So yeah, so we're splitting his region in half because business has been really good, and that business, of course, is what our members care about. It's making an habitat, places to take your dogs.
Yeah. John, give us an idea, like what's your, in a nutshell, what's your day-to-day job? You get up in the morning, are you in meetings, or are you out in the forest trying to figure out another management plan? What does it look like?
I think it's a combination of things, but I think Ben uses this term, and I've come to really like this term. Because I think it's part of his vision and how he, I think, looks at the Rough Grouse Society. He thinks of the forest conservation directors as architects. It's sort of our duty, our job to look at uh, the makeup of the landscape that we're assigned and figure out how we're going to build out the most impactful conservation program with the tools and partners we have available. So we're really here to kind of build it, orchestrate the whole project, um, get it built out, find the partners that we're going to work with to do the conservation work. Where is that conservation work going to be most impactful? Who are the right partners? What is the right process to do that work? Look at what are the major conservation problems and hurdles in those regions. So it's really being a builder, being a designer, and kind of building a conservation program.
I think architect was the right word. So you look at I'm not saying a wood lot, it could be tens of thousands of acres, but you look at it and see what it not could be, but should be. I mean, in an unsoiled world, what it should look like, right?
Well,
What it looks
well,
like.
I think zoom out, and in like the case of Michigan, uh we have the Huron-Manistee, the Ottawa, and the Hiawatha National Forest. And it's looking at, we have several state forests, like the Pigeon River State Forest in Michigan. And it's looking at how can we have an impactful footprint on the management of these forests that are in line with our mission, and saying how can we um, work with those agencies, property managers on the planning aspects of those forests, and then what role do we play in the management of those forests? Then how do we secure agreements and partnerships and funding to bring in people who can then implement that work, or bring in contractors who can implement that type of work, and sort of building out more of um, the system and the network of people who can then do the fun part of the job, which is actually going on the field and doing it.
Ben, you said business is so good that we had to split John's territory. How did that happen? I mean, do you have a feel for how to say, I think it's a great way of saying it. Business is so good. We don't think of the logging business being so good, or we don't think of the habitat business, but how did that come to be?
As John described their role with our forest conservation directors, and we've been in that kind of staffing shift for quite a few years now. I was referring to it as our new business model for a while, coming out of COVID and all that, but it's been up and rolling for a while. So John has built such a robust system up there with trust. John, I'll put you on the spot a little bit here. You mentioned national forests in Michigan. How many millions of acres of national forest are there in Michigan? Not to even mention state lands and other publicly accessible lands.
Oh, you're putting me on a spot, man. I was just looking at this yesterday. Yeah. I didn't know there was gonna be a quiz.
Yeah,
I think roughly
where business.
2.5 million.
So you got a couple million acres of fully publicly available, mostly forested national forest land. So that's really important to our members. I remember when I first came in and talking with members in Michigan specifically, one of the places they always talked about was you got to get some more cutting done on the Huron-Manistee National Forest. So this is the other part of what John is doing day to day is, okay, so there are a couple approaches you can do that. You can walk in the Huron-Manistee or one of the district offices and say, you need to start cutting more wood. That's one way.
Okay.
Or you go in and you say, your forest plan calls for more habitat creation. You can be doing some more cutting here. How can we help you get there? So this is where John, as the architect, starts working with that agency partner, in this case, the Forest Service on the Huron Manistee, to say, how can we help? What are your gaps? How can we help fill them as a partner so that we can get more cutting done? I say this all the time. How can we be part of the solution rather than part of the problem?
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of people that come blowing into those Forest Service offices saying, you should, you need to, you oughta. So when we're talking about helping manage the forest, we're saying, how can we help you get this done? It's in your forest plan.
So
how can we help you get there? And so that's one national forest. John has expanded that out across state, federal lands. Is doing a great job.
Yeah, I would add to that, Ben, looking at kind of where we're at conservation impact wise in the Great Lakes region. You brought up through COVID talking about the new model, comparing to where we were then to now. When we initiated the new model, we had one stewardship agreement with one national forest, the Chippewa National Forest. Where we're at now, we have agreements with every national forest in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
Wow.
So we have multiple agreements with multiple forests on top of a Region 9 agreement that we signed with the entirety of Region 9 of the U.S. Forest Service, but basically covering everything from Minnesota over to Maine, north of the Mason-Dixon line. That's Region 9. So we've grown the amount of agreements and the impact within those agreements in relatively short order. And that's just the work that we're doing with the U.S. Forest Service. On top of that, we have state agreements that we have on the books and ones that we're currently working on finalizing, and private lands work that we're doing with Natural Resources Conservation Service. So it's
sounds like we need about 5 more Johns.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, that's kind of,
we do.
I mean, it sounds like you say, like, okay, we're cutting his paper route in half. But he's got to deliver 1 million papers every morning. It's still staggering, that even though you got a smaller range, your workload, it sounds impossible. It almost sounds impossible, but I got to lead to a question. Both of you mentioned Forest Service plan. So is it, from a layman's term, does every forest have a plan, but they just don't have when it becomes a national forest, is there a plan devised for it? Or is it kind of like, oh, we got this acreage, let's put up some markers? Is there a plan that they haven't been able to implement now because you guys are stepping in with some resources for them, or advice or consultation? You're not like knocking on the door with the vacuum cleaner. Are they welcome to? Are they happy to see you, John? They're like, yes, we're way behind in our forest management.
Every national forest does have their own master plan for their forest. Kind of, it's something that goes out for public comment and input. They look at the science and the makeup of their landscape to devise these plans. There's a huge plan and effort behind each resource management plan for each forest. But yeah, you're I think spot on. It's largely, I think, from the Forest Service side, an issue of not being able to fully implement some of these master plans.
Right.
And a lot of times it comes down to capacity, funding, and opposition to some of the management in those plans. While they might get the plan approved with specific targets for young, middle-aged, and old forest, they're still a long ways from getting those projects implemented, where then each of those specific projects that work towards that master plan have to go for public comment. So it's sometimes difficult for those national forests to implement those plans. And that's really a role for partners like RGS to step in and say, we'll help you with some of these issues when it comes to funding, capacity, and we'll be in support of your plan all the way. We'll help you get that thing
So
implemented.
there's the whole process here, Ron, that when John and I at whatever point in our careers, but call it our early 20s, when we thought we knew what we'd be doing coming into the forestry and wildlife field out in the woods and putting paint on trees and creating habitat. That's certainly part of it. But like with this Forest Service planning, it's all a federal process. So we need to be involved for that ultimate thing to get that habitat created. We've got to be involved in the planning process, and that those plans are updated every few years. So we've got to serve in stakeholder groups in the planning process. We've got to provide public comments. Then when projects go out, according to each of those plans, there's a public comment process for that we need to make sure we're supporting the Forest Service, saying, yeah, go get them. And so we're engaged in this all along the way. So where John and I thought when we were 21 years old, we'd be out in the woods every day, we spent a lot of time in those meetings, and it's definitely the means to the end, right? We've got to be engaged in that whole chain of the process to ultimately get habitat created. And if we're not there, the Rough Grouse Society, other groups like us, conservation groups that oppose active management are definitely showing up. So we've got to show up. We've got to be there and have a voice to counter that argument that everything should just be left alone. Nothing should be managed. A tree should never be cut. So it's really important that our voice is there.
It's almost like anti-hunting versus hunting, isn't it? With logging, like there's forest management. There's forest management are good ethical hunters, and then there's anti-hunters who would be like, never cut a tree down. So, and you're up against people without science base, right? I mean, everything shows it in the science and in that a healthy forest gets rejuvenated. It doesn't just grow to tip over age. And how hard is it do you actually get into discussions with, like, say, a person or a group and have to say, no, your thinking is all wrong? I mean, how do you approach that other, I'm going to say I don't want to say the enemy, the opposition? How do you approach their comments? Like, or is it held in a federal office meeting and you get a chance to speak and they get a chance to speak? Is it go down that far?
Yeah, some of it is face to face where you're literally across the table. Mm-hmm. But where we've always hung our hat, and you're right, there is really strong science supporting what we do for forest health and active management, and the way that's important for wildlife, for carbon, the whole way through. So the science definitely supports active management. So we spend a lot of time making sure that is part of our comments, woven into our comments on a forest plan or whatever it might be.
Right.
That here's the scientific support. And that really helps the Forest Service, because they're getting pounded with from this other side. And what we're seeing lately is there's like kind of some faux science that's being touted out there in articles and various outlets. And it's not good science. It's not the good peer-reviewed stuff that we're hanging our hat on.
Yeah.
So it's really important for us to be there with the Forest Service and saying, no, this is the real science. We understand it's really loud over here and you're getting a lot of letters in and people are showing up, but let's stick to the real science. So that's one of the things we have to talk about. We can't, there's a certain point where it becomes, oftentimes, if you think about anti-hunting, a pretty emotional argument where you're not going to talk people out of that emotional connection. You're not going to sit down and have a logical conversation with a deep anti-hunter, and at the end they're going to leave like, oh, now I understand you, Ron. I support hunting. Yeah. So we need to, as best we can, stay out of those kinds of arguments. Let the science lead the way.
Right. But to that point, when you say those people are the other side, are they like the anti-hunters in that they get more people or more organizations rallying behind them? And are you the David and Goliath, but you've got science on your side, but you're still the David? Are they the Goliath, or is it not that bad?
This is a really good point. What if you look at a lot of the groups that are opposing management, and we can name a few. Center for Biological Diversity is always right there. Sierra Club. If you look at the work that they're doing and what they're spending money on, it's a lot of money being spent on the legal process and on mass communications, where the thing that we're focused on is being part of the solutions, active management, making sure we're helping the Forest Service manage for forest health. That's where we're investing our money. So in that sense, we are kind of outgunned, I guess, so to speak, as far as we don't have an entire staff or a huge purse to hire attorneys to work through all the legal channels that these groups often do. We don't have full teams of people doing mass communications and sometimes misrepresenting what the Forest Service is trying to do. So, yeah, we do feel a bit outnumbered in that scope sometime. But I'm also proud to say that we're actually putting our funding and our focus toward the problems and actually fixing the problems.
Right. And things are going in the win column. They're not beating you back. It'd be a lot easier if they weren't on the other side of the table fighting to keep every tree on the planet. But, I mean, for anybody who might be, I'm sure anybody listening to this podcast is pro habitat, which, we're kind of preaching to the choir, of course. So what we want from the choir is, yeah, we know you agree with us, but we also need you to join us, not just agree with us, right? I mean, you definitely need more like just plain out more members, right? I mean, that's
it's huge, and especially if you look at the public comment process, a lot of times it's a numbers game. So there's an old growth policy that's been running through the channels here for the past couple of years. So it's open for open public comment period right now.
Yeah.
So the groups that are opposed to forest management are doing huge campaigns right now to mobilize all their members to submit comments. Wow. So this becomes a numbers game at the end of the day, and for part of it, of how many comments do we get for or against this policy. So for us, we need to mobilize members, and this is how we communicate and say, hey, there's something really important going on here. I need you to submit a public comment. That's through our membership communications. Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. If we've got more members, then we're carrying more of that weight trying to tip the balance, because I guarantee you the Sierra Club's going to have hundreds of thousands of people that are commenting against management and these policy pieces. So how do we counter that?
Yeah, it seems insurmountable.
We need a lot of members too.
You need more members, and then you need members who are also not just members. They got to be a little bit there's got to be some advocacy. They got to respond to the emails. They got to write back, It sounds daunting, but I know since I've met you, Ben, since you started over at RGS, I feel like I don't know sports real well, but I know there's a couple baseball and football movies about the coach who comes in with the not so great team, right? And turns them into regional or national champions. And I always get that feeling from you, like, yeah, we might not be the biggest, but we're putting them all in the win. It seems like you're getting everything in the win column. I mean, maybe I'm not seeing the defeats, but it seems like it's going in the right direction.
We're always swinging above our weight, and that's why we wanted to come on and talk about what Jon has been able to build here. It's absolutely phenomenal if you step back and think about it, and where we were just a short time ago when he first came on, or before he came on. So he's built sometimes we call Jon King of the North. He's built a hell of an empire there. And now he's got to split it because it's more than one person can manage. But there isn't a finite amount that we can keep doing, Ron. We're getting close to, based on our size, and we're a member-supported organization. We want to be a member-supported organization. But that also means there's a finite amount that we can do. Like we're gonna be skin of our teeth hiring this new forest conservation director, because that comes out of our operational funding.
Yeah.
We need to do it. There's opportunity there. But like you pointed out a while ago, we could hire 6 more and be able to do that much more work.
Right.
But there again is where we're limited on with our number of members and that financial support that our members provide us.
Now, is it I apologize for not remembering this, but that's me. Did you already get the other forester that's going to do John's job here, or are you in the process of looking for that person right now?
We're recruiting right now. It's posted out there. It's a live open application process right now.
So somebody in that realm, that job is posted at RGS. And background would be obviously forest management and biology and what have you. Is John, are you hoping to get somebody who's better than you, or are you going to have to spend time mentoring this person? Because you obviously, if you're king of the north, the king of the woods, you probably you've but you probably developed, just like any salesperson would, a way of approach, like the first sentence sometimes. You know, and it's not, hi, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. It's, you know, you're going to have to probably share this with this person, unless this person is already doing your job in, Oregon or something like that.
I think regardless, there's going to be an onboarding process to kind of lay out the playing field in terms of this is currently what we have in the works. This is the plan direction that we're headed. We've kind of talked a little bit about where some of our existing conservation projects run. We haven't talked about kind of what's on the docket for the future. We've got a lot of kind of really exciting things coming down the rampike, but it's kind of laying out the playing field. I think working with them to get onboarded and really saying, you're the architect now. It's yours to take charge of and manage and see it be successful.
Right.
And that is, one thing I really do like about my job as an architect is really, it's saying, it's my job to kind of do all the problem solving. And that's what I love about this job, is the problem solving aspect of it. And just figuring out how am I gonna take our habitat condition where we're at now, and then work in line with all those partners and forests and funders and corporate sponsors and whoever else to get us where we want to be, in terms of our mission. So I think there's going to be a process where I'll be helping that person on board, but they'll be taking charge of the region. And one thing that Ben and I do have to kind of, I think, still sort out is kind of, where is that dividing line going to be in terms of Michigan? Because I do want to retain some of the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah.
Because the Great Lakes do make an issue in terms of trying to manage the conservation impact in Michigan, in terms of the travel time from
Yeah.
Lower Peninsula up to the Western UP. So
Yeah, that
we've got to
makes
figure out
sense.
still kind of where that dividing line of my region and the other FCD, Forest Conservation Director, will be. But
He's trying to make a logical argument here, but he doesn't want to give up all of his kingdom. I don't blame him. He's done a great job.
I kind of want to keep the Ottawa. We got a lot of good things going on the Ottawa National
So is the
Forest.
line drawn like Escanaba up and then over that way? Or, I mean, or
Well,
is it self-serving with you and your visual, because all these great spots to go hunting? I think we should not be, I think we should be fully transparent. Who would know the best places to go hunting than
well,
the
it's not just the hunting aspect though, Ron. Like there's actually there's a lot of really good partners that I've worked with, from the Hiawatha National Forest, the Ottawa National Forest, and part of me, it's gonna be challenging to kind of pass that torch to the next conservation director and say, these are your relationships to manage now. And
Yeah.
but one thing we didn't mention is again, are some of these things that we have on the horizon. This year we secured a rather sizable state grant from the state of Michigan, a state wildlife habitat grant, to do conservation work on both the Ottawa and Hiawatha National Forests, a $371,000 project. So looking at that's part of that impetus. We secured this large chunk of funding to do conservation work in Michigan. We also are drafting an agreement with the U.S. Forest Service for collaborative capacity in the state of Michigan, looking at all three national forests in the state of Michigan. Um, so it's looking at there's kind of that point about there is so much of this work that is needed that really it requires um, bringing on another person, and if we're going to continue to grow in the entirety of the Upper Great Lakes.
Well, how about you guys touch on, and I don't know who will speak on it better, or maybe both of you on different sides of it, because let's hope maybe somebody that's listening has a degree in this or has a passion for this. What was your background, John? What would this candidate look like from John's point of view and from Ben's point of view? I mean, could it be wet behind the ears right out of college? Or is this person probably already spent years doing similar stuff? What are you looking for in the candidate?
You want me to go first, Ben, or do you?
Well, what was your start? And then how did you end up being King of the North?
Well, I'm just a simple forester. That's all I am. No, but my background is in forest management and forest ecology. I guess you know, I grew up in the forestry field. A lot of my family members were foresters. My grandfather was a forester. Actually, we covered that on the last time I was on the
Right. Yeah,
podcast.
you have like a 3-generation forestry
The
back.
the pedigree, so to speak. Um, but then my graduate background, my master's degree is in wildland fire ecology. So I think the ideal candidate is somebody that understands forest management, forest industry, but also has a good wildlife foundation. I think we commonly use a term like wildlife forester.
Yeah.
And it's a subset, but there are foresters out there who understand um, kind of both fields. Somebody who has an understanding of ecology, wildlife management on top of forestry.
Yeah, I mean, you not
Well,
only have to know all the different trees. I'm being very, you know, obtuse. Not only you want somebody that doesn't know everything about the trees, but you want them to understand all the wildlife that lives within that in those confines, right? I mean,
well,
literally,
I think of the right person is just really being a conservationist, somebody who a forester who also upland bird hunts, for example, somebody who kind of understands firsthand the impact that they can have on wildlife populations
yeah.
through
we're,
those
we're
hunting
gonna
experiences.
we'll keep dialing this in, Ron, until we have a clear picture of this unicorn. So they've got to have forestry background, wildlife. They've got to have a great sense of the curiosity that kind of drives us, the passion. We want them to also have a bird dog, of course. There, so these things will show up on the resume, and this is kind of the process. And there's a fairly high probability that maybe the future FCD is listening to this podcast. So the important things,
Yeah.
those will all show up on the resume. We'll be able to see that experience, their degree. Then when we're having those conversations with them, and I had one of these recently because we're also filling right now a new forest conservation director on the coastal plain of Piedmont of the Carolinas, a woodcock-centric landscape.
Right.
One of the candidates really struck me because this individual had a lot of experience and was really interested in relationships. So you could have somebody with all those things on paper, the forestry background, they've done it, they've been there. If they walk into that Forest Service office or that DNR office and can't establish a relationship, or they rub those folks the wrong way, we're dead in the water. We're done. So a lot of this great work that John has done is because he's taken the time, he's listened, he's done all those relationship building things that then lead to more work. So now you get into, are they innovative? Can they think outside the box? Do they understand the gist of how things work with forest product markets and wildlife habitat. But then are they innovative, and can they kind of think outside of that box a little bit and how to create a business plan? So this is kind of that next step where we really get to with the interview process of and Ron, as you know, this takes experience. Think about when you first started your business. I mean, you learn the ropes through experience of doing this. I know when I first started fresh out of school, there was a lot to learn about strategically how to build those relationships and partnerships. And there was the school of hard knocks. I rolled in there full of piss and vinegar and made some people mad, and I had to learn from that and regroup. Next time, you ought to listen more and keep your mouth shut. So that's the kind of nuanced things that we're looking for in this unicorn.
Right. Yeah, it is. It sounds like a unicorn. It sounds like if I'll just pick Ford Motor Company. If Ford Motor Company wanted a new dealership in an area of the country that they want the guy who started sweeping floors, was a mechanic, also was a sales guy, and also didn't mind washing the windows once in a while when there was nobody around. I mean, this person's got to wear a lot of hats, but I got to believe they exist out there. John exists out there. There's got to be at least a couple more Johns out there, right? That's what we're looking for.
They are out there. And the cool thing, Ron, is that people are also seeing, thanks in no small part to what we've been able to do on your podcast, but they're seeing what we're doing. They're hearing us talk about how we approach our work and saying, hey, that's kind of a different tact for my professional interests. And this also meets my professional interests, but also my passion.
Right.
So what we're finding is we're kind of attracting these people because we're getting the word out about how we're doing business, that's really cool.
Yeah.
People want to come and work with us.
Yeah. It's not like hiring an engineer. You're looking for the guy who doesn't make eye contact with you when you're hiring a good engineer. You just want a brainiac, but you got to have everything. God, if I had time to go back to school, get my degree, I'm telling you, I would do it for RGS, but I'm a little busy.
You're doing a lot for us right now, Ron. You know that. We appreciate it a whole bunch. This is important. They need to be a good communicator too. This needs to be somebody, and I'll be thinking this in the interviews. How's it going to be when they sit down with Ron on a podcast?
Yeah.
Are they going to be comfortable in that setting, and the thing's just going to roll? So that communications piece is really important too. We got these chapters and members who are just on fire, passionate about this stuff. It's really important that they can take the technical stuff and the agreements and all the jargony business and come to those chapter events and say, folks, this is what we're doing. This is why it matters to you.
Right. Like I said, I guess you call it the COVID change, right? When the model changed with RGS. I know there was probably I'm sure I'm speculating here. There was probably a lot of speculation, right? With some people either at RGS or on the board or at chapter levels. Have you won the hearts and minds, you think, of everybody at this point?
Yeah, it never stops. The communications piece. You can never stop communicating in this business. One of the things I'm still learning as long as I've been doing this work and coming here is you just can't ever let up on the communications.
Yeah.
And that's so important in the nonprofit conservation world, that we just got to keep people dialed into the work that we're doing and why it matters to them. And why does it matter? And this is the thing about the three of us share on this call. Ultimately, it matters to us because I need somewhere to take this dog. I need somewhere to spend that time with my friends here. And everybody right now is putting the golf clubs away, getting the shotgun out.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to train dogs because it's not ungodly hot. Everybody's thinking about it. So while John and I are also very interested in the nerd out parts of silviculture and forest management, and he and I talk about that stuff, we need to understand where our members and supporters really care about these things, as do we, because it's a place we can take our dogs.
Right.
That's why we're doing the work.
Yeah, it's kind of the I think you kind of you drew a picture in my mind, like the RGS members, like, yeah, that's really cool. How many birds? Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool. When are we going to see
that's
more? But
yeah.
the bigger picture is so much bigger. It's just the birds are almost the byproduct of the project. Really, it's not. You're not trying to grow rough grouse in a pen. You're just building a place where they can thrive, which goes with hundreds of other species of animals. Which it seems like such an easy sell. It's hard to believe that when you mentioned Sierra Club, and what was the other one, John? You mentioned political diversity. What was that one?
There's a whole line of them, Center for Biological Diversity, Wilderness Society. I mean, there's dozens of them.
Right. It almost
Anti-management
sounds like
based.
it almost sounds like a slam dunk that you could get them to read some pamphlets on this and go like, oh, this is it seems almost laughable, but that this isn't more sellable, But
The thing that still has me stumped, and man, I'm figure this out, is so you're talking about trying to convince these other groups. Ron, you threatened to keep people's trucks before over this. Why aren't we convincing our own people, like that it would be in our own camp, to join?
right.
Like I'll worry about convincing the Sierra Club that we're doing the right thing later. Why don't I have 230,000 Rough Grouse Society members who are already get it about the work that we're doing?
Yeah, we probably bring this up every time you and I.
We use threats; those didn't work.
I know. We're gonna have to come up. We're gonna have to come up with some kind of a little prize bag or something. It is amazing. I just heard somebody else talking about, like you and I did years ago, John. You said 1% or less than 2% of grouse hunters are members, and this person's quoted that overall, and this means like pheasant hunters and prairie grouse hunters, that it's only at 4% for them, which is, it seems impossible,
Right.
to love something enough, even if you only do it a couple weekends a year, to love it that much and not go just that little bitty step further. We're not asking them to open up a new chapter and be a board member. We're just saying, come join us. Just come join us. You're going to get this great little magazine to read. It's going to give you some good information. You're taking that next step. It's hard to believe that such a small percent of any sportsman are not members of what their passion is. If they're, I'm sure how many white-tailed deer hunters are in this country? Like probably 20 million, right? And how many of them are members of a forest organization or a deer management, or probably the same thing, probably 4 or 5%. That is really, really sad. It really is. And it goes to, I was listening to a podcast the other day with the guys from Howell. They're working when there's let's say a bad bill in a state that says dogs aren't allowed to be left in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
You got all these hunters out there, and you got this one little organization fighting for them. But you got all millions of people with the dogs. They're like, oh, I'm glad they're fighting for us. But they're not throwing that little extra support out there. It's laughable and it's sad, but we'll keep pounding at them. I don't understand why I don't understand where that cliff falls off. I'd love to know what makes a person decide, like, oh, that's cool. I don't even want to use the word get involved. I don't want to be. Why wouldn't you want to be a member? Just be a member. You don't even have to put the sticker in your car. I won't key scratch it. Lisa Williams won't. Lisa Williams will not deflate your tires, but
Lisa might.
I had an iTunes comment about that episode with her, and the person wrote, "I can't believe it. Slashing tires and key scratching." I'm like, it's sarcasm, buddy. It's sarcasm.
Just kidding.
I just want you to join us. That's all. This is
one of the things right now, just because it's so prominent right now with some articles I've been seeing recently is just one of the things to make it clear as your voice really matters. Like it matters if I'm doing a public comment on behalf of the Rough Grouse Society and I say right in that first line, we represent X number of members.
Right.
So this really is an opportunity for people to be counted. And each one counts. So if I can open that letter and say, on behalf of our 500,000 members,
yeah,
we support X, Y, and Z. It's a numbers game a lot of times.
Yeah.
That's going to carry more weight than I say on behalf of the 20,000 members. So it really is a way for people to make their voice heard without having to work too hard. And we're working, and you've talked with Katie McCaleb, and make it as easy as we can to comment. So having things on our website or through an email where you can just click, submit your comment.
Yeah.
Everybody's short on time, all of us. So we're trying to make it easier too. But that's one thing that right now, just because everything that's going on, I'm really keying in on is make your voice heard. Make your vote count here and make your voice heard for the things that we care about.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to be, we don't need more. We just need more advocates, but you only get more advocates by increasing your numbers, John,
and then along with that comes our ability to bring on more staff to do more of the work that we ultimately care about.
To bring on 4 more Johns.
At
least 4 more Johns. Yeah, the timeline's not going to work out, but maybe I can get one of my. No, they already got their career path set. We just gotta. I'm trying to think outside the box, and I've said this before, and I've gotten good response from it. And for the listeners who paid attention to it, I appreciate it. I told my kids going on 3 years ago now. I said, I want you for your, like they say, Dad, what can we get you for Christmas? I don't need anything. On top of that, I'm sponsored up the wazoo. Only thing I have to buy occasionally are socks. I mean, I even get underwear now from Marshwear. I mean, I want for nothing. But what I told them is I want you to renew a subscription to RGS or PF or whatever organization most of them, both 2 of my daughters have grouse hunted with me. And I said, when I go to your house, I want to see that magazine. That's still a member for you, even though my daughters are never going to probably come to a banquet. But at least, if nothing else, ask somebody in your family to buy that. That's their present to you. They're going to spend more than $35 on something you're going to throw out. Spend $35 or $45 or whatever the membership rate you can do. Oh, my dogs are getting a little loud. Spend that on a membership. I mean, that's not a hard ask. You could double numbers if people would just do that. In fact,
and if they open that magazine up when it comes, and there's an article in there about the importance of forest management for wildlife, and they happen to read it, that's really important for us too, because beyond just members, we're looking at that like 75% of society that's kind of on the fence about forest management or about hunting for that matter.
Right.
And so they read that article. So when they see some other article that's, slinging some of this faux science, maybe they'll say, that really doesn't match up with what I was reading in the RGS magazine that showed up at my house.
Right. Yeah, I didn't want the magazine just for me when I come over to watch the grandkids, but I do want them to open the magazine up. But self-serving, at least I got something on the coffee table for me when I get there. John, what is it? I mean, I know I kind of asked this in the beginning. Hang on 1 second. Hey, Woxy, quiet. That's enough. If there was a new piece of property, like 10,000 acres just came into your viewfinder, does not you as the forester, but do you guys literally, or are there foresters that literally have walked every square mile of a forest or every square, I mean, do you really know what that looks like inside? Or do you just have what a certain type of forest looks like? Do you know it passionately?
I could answer this question so many different ways. Ron, I'm such a nerd that I'm a nerd for forests, that when I was early in my career, I would actually keep track of every forest stand I walked on the forest that I worked on. Because when I was a county forester, I wanted to touch every piece of that county forest that I worked on. I worked on a 132,000 acre forest. So every time I'd go do inventory or set up a timber sale, I would track and look at um, every forest stand. I'd keep track of. I didn't keep up with it. I wish I did now, just to kind of see kind of all the territory and country that I've gotten to cover in my career. Um, and I'm mid-career, so I mean there's still opportunity left on that table. But there are I think maybe to the heart of your question is that you know the landscapes that we have now are largely due in part to um, dedicated folks, natural resources professionals that keep these lands managed and in a good state of habitat quality and condition. But there's always room for improvement and a need for us to do better.
Yeah.
I suppose. Um, I hope that answers your question.
Well, I was just trying to picture like, you know, would you when you say you kind of answered, you kind of nerd out. You when you did that in the beginning, you wanted to know that forest intimately,
I
you know.
did. Yeah.
Even as hunters, we don't we're kind of looking for spots where you're looking at the big picture. Like you have like a vision, like, oh, that's not how, oh, that's not, oh, that could be better. It's like it's almost like a running loop in your head all the time. It's almost a little insanity to keep, that'd be like
Yeah,
that'd be
when
like, all right, here's what it'd be like. It'd be like if you were a really good tuck pointer, a bricklayer tuck pointer, it's a specialty, right? And you were walking through an old neighborhood of brick homes, you're going like, oh, that house is good. No, that one needs work. Oh, that needs work. I could help there. Oh, you know what? You're looking at it like with a microscope because of that passion for the forest, really beyond the animal, not beyond the animals, but how it's defined to get. It's an interesting. I think if I'd have gone to college, that would have been path I could have
I
maybe could have done.
I understand what you're saying, Ron, and what you're talking about. It's kind of like it is a certain level of insanity. It's kind of like when you're talking about like a bricklayer, also like I'm thinking of like a welder who
Yeah.
goes on vacation and on the cruise ship and is inspecting welds on the cruise ship and can't go on vacation because he's too caught up in looking
Yeah.
at looking at and grading the welds on the ship that was built.
That's what I was getting at. That's what
It,
I was
it
getting at.
it's yeah. I mean, I kind of that same thing where I'm driving around a countryside with my wife, or we're maybe we're going to looking at some hunting spots or something for this fall, and I'm irritating her saying, well, I would have cut that differently. I would have done better there. Why'd they leave that tree? Irritating her in that sense.
Well, that's the person we're looking for, Ben, right? That's the person who he has like a third eye, and it's always like from the forest to the one tree. Like, well, that one's that one shouldn't be there. And
yeah, you have to temper it so that you don't go nuts. And I think you and I have talked about this before. Anytime I'm driving out 80 or down 81 or up 84, I'm looking on both sides of the road and there's all this forest and it's all the same age. And it
yeah,
just, if I let it, it will make me insane.
right,
But
right, yeah,
bringing this background to the work that John does beyond just noticing things as he's traveling around, when you're looking at a couple million acres of national forest, for example, in Michigan, while John hasn't walked at all, somebody has.
yeah,
So
yeah,
one of the first things that we do when we go into that Forest Service office, and this is in the forest plan, is say, okay, somebody has inventoried this whole thing. And we're noticing that the forest diversity, the age class diversity is out of whack here. Because somebody has inventoried, probably many, many people
Right.
have inventoried that over the years. So we have an idea, a picture of that condition. So we'll go into with the Forest Service and say, okay, how can we get this closer to the desired condition you have with more forest diversity that's in your plan?
Right.
And how can we help you manage it toward that end without having had to set foot on all 2.5 million acres?
Right. Yeah, because that it seems too daunting, and I never thought about that these forests are in. I don't think anybody's ever said that these forests have been, and are currently always being inventoried. They're
Exactly.
like, if somebody had to say how many grade lumber black oaks do we have or red oaks do we have in there, somebody would actually have a pretty close number to that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and to speak a bit about, and we're really into forest management, we look at the age class diversity is really important, both young and old forest. And almost without exception, when we look at these inventories, there are two things that are lacking: the amount of young regenerating forest, but also the amount of old forest too. So when we're looking at overall habitat diversity, we're not anti-old forest, not at all. And grouse and wildlife all need that old forest as part of the components that they need. And without fail, when we look at a forest plan, it's usually we need some more young forest. We also need some more old forest to make sure those areas are progressing to older age. So we're definitely not anti old forest and just want to cut it all. That's not the case.
Right. No, you just want to have oh God, we're going to use the word diversity. We just need diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need it. We need lots of different forest types across those landscapes to support the maximum amount of wildlife. That's what we need.
It's just a matter of knowing your trade, and you guys know the trade, and just implementing it. But we need members. We need more members. And I mean, like I said, I don't care if you don't grouse hunt, but if you listen to the show, I'm making a plea that, join Rough Grouse American Woodcock Society. You're at some point you're going to want to go somewhere else and hunt. I don't care if you live in Oklahoma. We know they don't have, well, I know they have forest in Oklahoma, but they don't have our kind of forest. But consider something a little bigger than what you're just interested in. Think about the big picture. And RGS, the planet. I mean, I'm going to be really schmaltzy here. The planet needs your help. The forests that don't get cut are, it's some, like, could you draw an analogy, John or Ben? If we didn't do anything, like if we just stopped right now, like COVID shut the airlines down and closed the schools. If logging stopped, what would that look like in 100 years or 50 years? What would that, or would things start tipping over in our favor and old trees, make clearings? What would happen if we quit logging in this country?
I think it would go south. It would go south and sour pretty quick. I mean, a lot of the early successional and young forest habitat that, the species that we're passionate about do require, they're very ephemeral. We'll lose that early successional habitat in 10 years. It'll be gone if we don't keep at it and keep on it and helping to make, to Ben's point, keep these landscapes diverse.
Yeah. So
and to understand that forests are dynamic, they're not in a steady state, and we can go and look at places like this, and it really, it's just a farce. And I'll go ahead and jump right out at it, that you can just walk away from things and let nature take its course.
Right.
We've disrupted so much of that. Last I checked, we're in a human-dominated planet.
Yeah.
So to go forward with the idea that these forests are just going to take care of themselves and all of a sudden we're just going to back out. Humans have impacted these forests for tens of thousands of years.
Right.
And we have issues with invasive species. Climate is impacting these forests in ways. We have to actively steward these lands to get the results that we want of wildlife diversity, climate mitigation, and all those things. this is a human-dominated planet. Humans need to take a role, and the science shows this. Humans need to take a role in making sure our forests are resilient. And we can see many cases where we just walk away and we have these issues like invasive species or things start falling apart like John is talking about. I would love it if we had large land bases where natural processes like fire were just free to run and these forests could manage themselves. That'd be great. That's
not
the
going to
furthest
happen.
thing from reality as you can have.
Yeah. that'd be like not putting out the forest fires, right? There's a forest fire, they're going to put the forest fire out because it's going to burn out a bunch of, you're right. We live here, we changed it, and now we kind of owe it back to the planet to do what we can to make it as healthy as we can. It's just as important as clean water, clean air, and everything else. But
we have to be proactive in stewardship.
Yeah. It's kind of daunting. Every time I talk with you, I feel like, oh, wow, things are getting good. I'm like, but boy, it's such a big, like you made a good point, John or Ben, when you said, when you go down the highway, I take the turnpike and I hit Pennsylvania. I go through the turnpike and I drop down into Shenandoah Valley, and I don't see anything because maybe that's so close to the edge of the highway. It's kind of boring. It's kind of mundane. And I look at it like, oh, we're never going to get there, because it's like, well, we're never going to, how do we change it? Well, there's plans. The plans are there. We just need the people behind it. I mean, to go back to membership, to go back to anything you can do.
There's a have to here. We can't take all of this for granted. We can't take, and our flagship species we manage for all wildlife. But let's just look at grouse and woodcock as these bellwethers, as the canaries in the coal mine. We've got drastic reductions over the past 3 decades in grouse and woodcock numbers. In some places, up to 70% loss of rough grouse numbers, averaging 50% loss. And that trajectory is going to keep going in the wrong direction if we're not doing it. So you really have to look at it to keep yourself from going nuts as how do you take bites out of the elephant? And it's one agreement at a time. You're talking about the George Washington Jefferson National Forest as you're going down through the Shenandoah Valley. We're working hard to get in with the George Washington Jefferson and to help them implement their plans. How do you take bites out of the elephant?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's one hell of a daunting job. But I think we got the right people in charge. I know that for a fact. Well, as much as I know about forest management, I think we got the right people in charge.
That's encouraging. We need things we need that encouragement.
But people, bear in mind, in full transparency, my degree is in welding. Okay. But my other degree is in interests, and I'm always interested in and I've said this before, when I started hunting, I was like, when I started going out to South Dakota, if you'd have said this place needs more pollinators, I literally wouldn't have known what that meant. I honestly would have thought it was a word connected to polluters. I was just a guy that went out there and extracted because it was fun with my friends. And it took me to be probably in my 40s before I was like, oh, this is really, there's way more. In other words, there's way more to it. And I know from listeners and people who show up at events that younger people are thinking about it more than I used to. Like, let's just say the 32-year-old hunter that's out there now, I think we are at least teaching them, and they're aware of things way more than me and my other group of friends were at 32. To us, it was like going golfing. It really was. It was like, let's grab the clubs, let's drive to South Dakota, and let's club some pheasants, and let's run home. But it can't be like that anymore. And I don't think it is like that, but some percent it is, and we need to change that percent.
That's where you day to day, if you try to look at the change and what did I accomplish today or yesterday, it's helpful to look at 3-5 year windows and the things that you're talking about, where it does seem that there's increased understanding of the work we're doing and why it's important. When you
Mhm.
look at that over time, how that is shifting, and I think you're right. That
Yeah.
tells you that it's work worth doing
Yeah.
and that you're making progress. Day to day, you can feel like you're spinning your wheels, but then you look back between 2020 and now and you say, oh, holy smokes, we did a lot.
Yeah.
All right, good. There's some fuel. Keep going.
Right. No, because the other thing, I remember one time you told me if things don't change, that my grandkids are going to probably have to go north of the Great Lakes to go grouse hunting someday. If we don't, if going to my first question, what if we did nothing? And that's just not even an option to think that way. It's hard
I
to
don't
believe
think
that
so.
there's groups that think that way. It's really hard to believe there's groups that think that way. Yeah. Let's shift a little bit here. We know how important John's job is, and we know he's going to get a gold watch here at the end of his career. We know that. And probably maybe a small tract of land named the Steigerwalt National Forest, maybe.
I'm in.
But let's talk about our other legacies that we leave on the land, our dogs. Like John, or John's got a Vizsla, and I don't know anything about your Vizsla, John. Where did you get it, and when did you get it? And um, does he get to go out on preseason walks with you? I know you don't go out and mark trees anymore, but or do you?
We actually I'm going to be marking trees next week.
You're
But
still doing everything. Good Lord.
you gotta stretch that muscle. Um, but and going to be hopefully treating some invasive species on top of a bunch of other work. But she's 4.5 years old. I got her from a rough grouse and buffalo guide in Wisconsin, Ides guides and buffalo hides. Uh, yeah, from a gentleman by the name of Terry Ides. He and his wife. She's been a good dog for me. We have been getting out doing some training this year. I'm pretty fortunate where I live. It is a diverse landscape where I live. The ecological units in Wisconsin, I'm kind of right at the edge between some of the northern forests, ecological landscape, and the Northwest Sands, which I know you've had uh, folks from Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society on your podcast. So I live right near some of the Barrens habitats as
Oh,
well,
nice.
where
Yeah,
the Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse are. So I get the opportunity to train her on Sharp-tailed Grouse and Rough Grouse preseason.
nice.
Um, uh, so it's been nice, been getting off a little bit this year already doing some training.
What was last season like for you? I mean, you have a full-time job. I know, unless you're a rural route mail carrier, you don't get out every day.
I'm trying to remember how my season was last year. I had complaints, mostly about my shooting.
Well, that we can't help you with.
Yeah, uh,
You
well, that was most of my complaints. But I think it was for me it was a little bit hard to find some woodcock last year. Um, but we made it work. Definitely my shooting could have been improved upon, but the dog definitely did shine. I think she did phenomenal last year for the birds we got on.
That's cool. Now, do you get to travel? I kind of picture somebody this vested in what I'm just saying in forests. Do you have that wanderlust to go to the prairies ever, or do you love the forest so much that you're going to spend every walking hour?
Yeah. Uh, well, the last 2 years I've gone out to South Dakota. We've been doing some pheasant hunting, kind of later season, late November, December. This year, though, I do have planned next month to get out to South Dakota for sharp-tailed grouse hunting.
Oh, nice. You're going to go out by the grasslands then?
Yeah, I got an invite to go out there. Uh, we're gonna actually go on some tribal land.
Nice. Oh, I was on the it was at the I was on the Rosebud once upon a time, and there was prairie chickens and sharp tails, and it was a good hunt.
I've been kind of doing some e-scouting, looking at where that's going to be. We're going to be a little bit north of some of the prairie chickens, but still sounds like a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, It'll be a little different experience, definitely more rattlesnake country. So that'll be different for me in Wisconsin.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing you don't have to worry about up there, I would imagine. John, how about you? What's the new dog? So are you up to 3 dogs now, John, or did you lose an older one and you've got 2? I can't remember. 2. You got
Two here. The old boy died Easter weekend, and then we already had a new puppy reserved and in the queue. So we picked her up. My son Cole and I did a couple thousand miles in 2.5 days up to the UP to pick up one of Kyle Warren's Paint River setters. So we picked her up like the 3rd week in June.
yeah.
So
So
she's coming up on 4 weeks or 4 months.
4 months. So she's certainly going to get out. You know, it won't be an adult first season, but she's going to get into some birds this year.
Yeah, she'll be able to smell some birds. She's doing really well with her. We're doing all the yard work, all the obedience stuff, and
Yeah.
she's doing wonderfully with that. I mean, just a connected little dog from the get go. Just always wanting to make connection with you. She's thus far been just a real delight to train. So yeah, she'll be in good shape by mid-October enough where she'll have her she'll know her P's and Q's and be able to spend some time in the woods.
Am I mistaken, or didn't you get your last 2 dogs from the great state of Michigan?
Yeah, both of my dogs right now are from Michigan. My four-year-old female, she's a Michigan DNR.
Yeah, so there's no good setter breeders in Pennsylvania, huh?
Oh, I'm definitely not going to say that, but alignment with the dogs I'm looking for, these ones are, boy, and this Paint River puppy is just super fun. I've got a lot of hope for her. And it'll be super fun this year having a 4-year-old dog. I mean, Phoebe, she's got, she knows the game. You know, she's a pro. Yeah. So it'll just be a wonderful mix of running the professional and getting the puppy some experience.
Yeah, let the puppy get some low hanging fruit. Get into a good flight of woodcock.
Yeah, hopefully
put Phoebe away and say,
yeah, find some of those.
Phoebe, you're going back in the truck. Come on, Ruthie, you're up.
That's going to be a challenge. Yeah, hopefully we get into some of those early grouse where there's still some broods and some young birds hanging out, and she gets a big snoot full of ruffed grouse, and then we'll drag it out and hopefully even follow the woodcock migration a bit. The last few years I've been heading south in January, which is a great way to extend the season, especially with a young dog on the truck. That's going to be really nice.
Yeah. How about any ventures out beyond the Great Lakes and beyond the East? You going out west at all?
Not for me, Ron. That's I've said this with big game hunting too. You got to go elk hunting, you got to go mule deer hunting, and I've always just said, at the point where I'm satiated and I just have had enough of what's local, like hunting whitetails or black bear hunting in Pennsylvania, then maybe I'll feel the need to stretch out. But boy, I just can't. I can't get enough time spent. I barely ever hunt my old favorite home covers at home because I'm traveling, and it's an important time of year for RGS and events and traveling all over, and that's a wonderful thing to get to do. But I don't even get to hunt a lot of my favorite covers as much as I would like to. So when I think about going to South Dakota or somewhere else in a week or two, I'm like, man, I could spend that week and actually hunt some places I've loved over the years at home. I'm a homebody.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. If you tell me there's a new spot with a group of friends that want to go somewhere, I'm like, I'm in. I'm always like whack-a-mole. New spot, and I've got I'm like you. I've got spots by my house that I could go, and I might go there for an hour. But boy, if a group of people tell me they're going somewhere, I'm like, I'm in. But that's, I think I'm as much a social hunter as I am a real hunter. And my dogs reflect that, unfortunately, right now. But in fact, that's kind of funny. I got a Pennsylvania dog this year, and you got a Michigan dog this year. Yeah. I guess the grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it, John? Or Ben? Well,
Yeah, and looking at there are so many great dogs out there, and kennels that are producing dogs that are different things depending on what you're looking for. And that the old fella that died in April, he came out of a full-on field trial line, and so you learn things. Trying to, with all due affection and reverence for that dog, God, he was tough to tame. He had legs, man. And so my venture into the DNR, the Michigan DNR dogs, was just that focus on foot dogs specifically for grouse and woodcock.
yeah.
And that's what I got with that 4-year-old, and that's what I'm looking for. And his reputation, this is what you get from these Kyle Warren dogs too. So I'm good for a while on the field trial lineup setters.
Don't blame me. John,
up to his last day, he had legs, man. That dog would just rip.
That is in the long. I've had dogs that, I wouldn't say I've had a dog that just rips, but I've had them always that wanted to hunt more than I did or bigger than I wanted them to. And it does, when you do get one that you feel is paying attention to you, boy, it's like your kid getting married and never getting a DUI and never getting arrested. Like, God, am I proud of that dog. I don't care if he hits a home run. I don't care if he becomes a but boy, am I proud of that kid. John, did you have a Vizsla or anything before your current Vizsla?
Not for quite a while before I got Hazel. I had a lot of dogs growing up, Springers, Labs, those type of things. But I would say as an adult, she was definitely my first foray into the bird hunting, bird dog. Um, I'm kind of one of those hunters that's a reactivated hunter. We talk about R3 programs, hunter recruitment, retention, reactivation. I was a hunter that hunted and fished a lot when I was younger. They went off to college, and early career in college, you kind of have to let go of a few things just to keep your priorities set. Get kind of established in your career and not flunk out of college. So I through college I kept deer hunting, mostly for the family camaraderie. We have like a quintessential or typical northern Wisconsin deer camp. So for family purposes, kind of keeping that camaraderie going. I always made a point of deer hunting each year, and then fishing is just really easy, enjoyable, relaxing. But I had to let things like rough grouse hunting go to the wayside. But as I've gotten kind of established my career, get a little more footing underneath me, it was something that I wanted to pick back up, get back into, and I think that's maybe a message to those out there who are thinking about getting reactivated into hunting is I found a second life in doing it, and I hope others do too. It definitely was the right choice for me to kind of pick that back up and prioritize it.
When you found that,
John,
go ahead, Ben.
John getting that dog coincided pretty closely with him coming to RGS and AWS. So as a word out, we're sure it'd be great if you have this forest conservation director applicant that's already a bird hunter, but there are multiple among our ranks that are becoming bird dog enthusiasts after coming to RGS and AWS.
So those who have dogs can apply. Those who don't have dogs should apply, because you're going to end up with a dog. period.
Just understand you're probably going to drink the Kool-Aid and you're going to be all
Right.
in. You can't hang out for long RGS and AWS and not be like, I want in on this.
I got it. I don't care.
And we can call that a benefit of the job too. Getting to just meet so many passionate members within our organization, chapter leaders. You get to meet a lot of people who own kennels. Can teach you the ins and outs of shooting a shotgun and what type of ammo to buy. And I talk about I rough grouse hunted when I was younger. I don't want to say I was very good at it.
Right.
But you start to get surrounded, working at RGS by people who can really kind of educate you on the ins and outs of bird hunting. And there's something where as somebody with natural resources background and education and experience, I definitely get the passion to share that with our members. And our members have shared their hunting experiences, and it definitely influenced some of the gear and equipment that I've purchased, and my choice to go with a Vizsla over another dog, with some of the hunting that I wanted to do. So I'm not going to say my next dog is going to be a Vizsla. My wife and I are talking about getting a Brittany. Yeah, getting back to what we said about diversity being important. Diversity is spice of life. So try a Brittany out, because there's only gonna be so many bird dogs I'm gonna be able to have in my lifetime. So take a whack at a little bit lower energy dog, so to speak.
And you'll I was going to ask you, maybe we'll wrap it up with this, because John or Ben talked about the field trial line, and then the DNR line, and the Paint River line, dialing more and more into what he wants. When you found that Vizsla, was it through an RGS member or a buddy? Did you do a lot of homework, or were you just like, oh, good, I got a dog? Because there's a lot I know Vizslas, and there's some that are literally field trial type Vizslas, that they have got more run than they've got as much run as any pointer or setter, some of them,
Well, I'd done a little bit of homework. So one of my colleagues, Jared Elm, who's now our state coordinator, conservation coordinator for Wisconsin, he had a Vizsla, still has a Vizsla, and so my wife and I, we're got the opportunity to hunt over his dog. Kind of liked its temperament, its hunting style. I liked how well it how closely it worked, how well it did quartering, and it was a good pointer, is a good pointer. But understanding that as a dog owner, 80% of your ownership is just living with that dog.
Yeah, more than that.
maybe you get to hunt that dog if you're very lucky 20% of the time. So it was kind of, we had dog sat his dog quite a few times trying to figure out, do we like the temperament? Do we like the dog, around the house? Is this going to be a good fit for us, outside of hunting? And that kind of led into then kind of putting out some feelers to members and other folks within our Jess's network. And I got to meet Terry Ides and his wife Joanne through a workshop that Rough Grouse Society puts on called Coverts in Wisconsin, which is a private landowner workshop that RGS puts on. Terry does a great job the last day of the workshop showing people all the work he's done on his property for rough grouse management.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to meet Terry and Joanne and talk to them about their guide service that they do for rough grouse hunting in Wisconsin. And it just so happened at that point in time, Terry was looking to get a litter and got myself on the list to get one of his dogs. A lot of his dogs come from he has a strong history of bringing dogs over from Europe and kind of breeding into his line, and just like the body style of the dogs are a little bit on the bigger side for Vizslas. But I actually got the run to the litter, which I've been very actually happy with her size and her energy. Yeah, I'm overall very, very happy.
Well, I'm sure you're going to rely on a bunch of RGS members, friends, and family for your next one too, right? You're going to.
We're going to do the research.
If nothing else, if you join RGS and you go to a banquet, you'll get at least 5 people there who'll tell you what kind of dog you need. Right? At least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ben, I want you to kind of close this up and put a bow on it. Okay?
We can take that back to membership. I was up in Michigan in March, and we had a Birds and Brew in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. I was making the rounds. There were a lot of young people in the room, and a lot of members who had come back to RGS and had been gone for a while. You know, life priorities. They had retired and come back. I'm going to be able to bird hunt more now, so I'm rejoining. But I heard a lot of those younger members saying the reason they had joined was they had gotten a bird dog or wanted one, and someone had said to them, hey, you should join RGS because that's a great way to get connected with people who can help you through having a new bird dog. And all the time I'm getting requests, hey, do you know anybody that's going to have a setter? I'm looking to get a new dog, whatever breed, in the coming months. So another reason to join is that network we've been talking about for the last few minutes, of helping you, mentor you, train your dog, connections to dogs, ability to see lots of different dogs work. That's a great reason to join.
Yeah, no, I couldn't.
And we've got a fall member drive coming up. So it'll have, I don't know what we've got teed up as far as the swag and the stuff as part of that member drive, but we're teeing up our fall member drive. So it's a great time to join, and you get a little extra something beyond your membership.
Yeah. I have an idea that I'll do off air, but is that good? Are we good? Did we cover everything? Sounds
great. Always really appreciate the chance to get on here and talk, Ron. This podcast, a lot of the people that listen here, these are the folks that we need to get the message to. So really appreciate you and all you do for our work.
Well, I wouldn't have it any other way. I would do the same for lesser men.
We appreciate it, Ron.
I appreciate everything you guys do. I'm going to pause that. So I know I've asked you 100 times, and I'm going to ask you 101 times. If you take a wild bird in this country, you owe it to the conservation organization that supports the habitat for that bird. And in my opinion, you owe it to the habitat organization that supports everything we do. And that's RGS, PF, DU, Delta Waterfowl, everything, the prairie grouse, you name it. I'm sorry. Find the time, find the money, join up. They seriously, I know it sounds like a broken record. These organizations need your help on every level, even if it's just a membership. It's not going to kill you. All right. Hope to see you in the field. How many am I going to see in the field? There's 100,000 of you. But anyway, I hope we run into a few of you this year. A few of you already told me about where you're going to be. And I think I'll meet a couple of my listeners this year that I've never met before. I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, I hunt for friendship, not for birds. But we all need to support these organizations so we can keep these friendships and these dogs and these birds right where we want them. All right. Love you guys. Love you girls. And I love you RGS members even more.